Who is the mysterious person exactly? Why does he always appear at crucial moments? Is he really the murderer? These questions make people eager to know the answers. Don't you want to find out? Join us for an epic village tale. Subscribe. 5ETHII. My voice is a whine. The skin he punctures stinging. You're hurting me. He ignores me. Fingers digging deeper. What were you talking about? He demands. In the dining hall. Nothing. My voice shakes as I try to push him off me, squirming against the wall. Don't you lie to me? Alara, he hisses, or I will go back in there and throw you on the fire, and then your face will be just as ruined as your horrid arm. My stomach twists. He's growing glassy. But the warning glint in his eyes is enough to stop my squirming and convince me to open my mouth. I saw you last night. I saw you with Krista. He freezes, glaring at me with malicious blue eyes. This right. I said it. Let me go. I try to push him off me, but instead, he wraps a hand around my other wrist and pins them both above my head, nails digging into my skin. You ever try anything like that again and I will make sure you never get a suitor. He snarls in my ear, his grip tightening. You hear me, Amy? Alara, nobody will ever want you. You will die alone. I'll take your sister from you, and you and your poor father will be left selling stones for the rest of eternity. My breath catches in my throat. ETHI Toledano is standing here threatening me. He hushes my dates myself, and I believe every word that he says. I am just a girl and he is one of the guards. If you tarnish my name, my family would be ruined. Okay. Don't test me. Alara. He presses closer. You keep your mouth shut, or else. Mr. Toldita, no. A voice calls from behind him. I know who it is almost immediately from the way my heart rate picks up. ETHI drops my wrist almost immediately. I saw kite, taking a step back. He stares at me as he composes himself, and then he turns around. I stay pressed against the wall, wishing I could somehow disappear. Marul stands a few feet away, shadowed by the wall behind him. He's wearing his trademark dark clothing, and his hair is pushed back from his face slightly wet. He looks as if he's been swimming. He looks as if he's walked out of a pool of youth. But the look in his eyes is a look no youthful person should ever have. The look ETHI gives me the look of death. I am new to the Ademos way of living, he says, his eyes zeroed in on ETHI. It's like I don't even exist. I could slip away and neither of them would notice, but I can barely move. I am frozen to the spot in fear, my wrist stinging. But where I come from, we do not threaten people, especially not innocent ones. ETHI's mouth opens and closes, his feet stumbling backwards. William Marul is from the palace. He is above us all, both in status and power. If ETHI could ruin my life, Mr. Marul could destroy it. ETHI cuts off, his face reddening as he pauses to take a deep breath. I wasn't threatening Alara. Sir, we were having a conversation. That's interesting. He tilts his head to the side and raises an eyebrow. When I have conversations with others, I don't tend to restrain them against a wall and threaten their lives. In fact, where I come from, we have a different name for that in Mr. Toledano. The punishment for a thing like that. He trails off. I need ETHI up. I'm not so sure a man like you would withstand it. ETHI doesn't say anything in response. I can't see his face, but I can imagine the look on it, pure terror. Mr. Marul's words aren't even aimed towards me. I'm almost shaking in my boots. Mr. Marul. He gulps. Please, Torit. Forgive me. Mr. Marul quirks an eyebrow. It is not me you should be asking forgiveness from. But unsurprisingly, apologizing to me is far below him. Because without another word, ETHI darts from the scene and disappears around the corner. I stare at Mr. Marul, still pressed against the wall, my hands clutching at the wood in fear as my wrists sting from the aftermath of ETHI's grip. Miss Feline. Mr. Marul takes a few strides towards me and reaches a hand forward, pausing when I flinch backwards. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to have a look at your wrists. When our eyes meet, I can't help but believe him. Mr. Marul takes my wrist gently in his own. The warmth of his skin can be felt even through the fabric of my sleeves. My wrists have bloody dents in them from ETHI's fingernails, but they are no worse than a graze I would get from falling over in the market. You told Mr. Toledano you saw him with your friend, he asks, turning my wrists over in his hands. His dark skin contrasts my own, so dark and untouched by work where mine are pale and scratched. Imelda's my sister, I say. When his eyes reach mine, they flicker unnaturally. You're a good sister. She's very lucky. Am I? I haven't actually told Imelda. I haven't actually helped her at all. Blood rushes to my cheeks as I dart my gaze down as I draw my hands back, holding them against my chest. Thank you for your help, Mr. Marul. His mouth stretches into a charming grin. Will. Excuse me? It's Will. He repeats, eyes glimmering with something that makes my heart skip a beat. I won't respond to anything else. My cheeks flare, stomach twisting. I'm so sorry, Mr. Will. I'm so forgetful. I didn't mean to disrespect your wishes. It's quite all right. Alea hits me off, his smile growing. I bite my lip when he looks at me. Is it all right if I call you that? I should say no. It isn't proper, and if people around us heard, they would ask questions. But when Will says my name, my head feels light. There is something very intimate about being on a first-name basis with somebody you first met, and something about it entices me. I swallow, holding my hands behind my back. Yes, it's all right. His grin widens. Well then, Alea, will you let me tend to your wounds? My cheeks warm when I imagine saying yes. Would he take me back to his guest house? Would his skin brush mine? I shake my head, imagining the rumors that would float around if I were to be caught in the guest house with Will. I am quite capable of tending to them myself. I see, he muses. And I suppose you won't agree to walk with me, either. Will stands in front of me with an unwavering smile and dark eyes that seem to glow even in the daylight. He's charming and handsome, but there's a cloud of warning that lurks around him, reminding me that I don't know him. The only thing I know about this man is that he is from the palace and is here to investigate Alex's death. I'll walk with you if you agree to tell me why you were outside the gates last night. I step forward, eyes narrowed slightly. Will laughs, the sides of his eyes crinkling and his face lighting up. You must be a little confused. I haven't left the village since we spoke outside the walls yesterday. I frown. I know that I saw him, just like I know that I saw ETHI and Krista. Why is he lying? I purse my lips together and push off the wall and turn to walk away. Will follows me. Mr. Toledano won't bother you again, he says, walking with his hands loosely at his sides. We pass through the empty market space. Mr. Toledano has bothered me my entire life, I say. I doubt that you will stop him. Will puts a hand on my upper arm to stop me from walking. I shiver, wondering what it'd feel like if my sleeves weren't covering my arms. Will's eyes are dark and intense, his face all angles. He's given you troubles before? He asks, eyes narrowed with interest. Why my words falter in my throat. Being in such close proximity to him snatches all the breath from my lungs. I want to blurt everything to this man from the palace. I want to tell him about the jagged and ruined skin on my arm. I want to tell him how I am an outsider. And I want to know him. I want to know where he grew up and what his favorite color is and what his hobbies are. But he's a man from the palace, a man who has only ever known perfection and beauty. A man who should have no interest in me. I bite my lip. Because he doesn't like me. Why not? He wonders, tilting his head slightly. I don't know. His questions make me feel like I'm being interrogated. What about everybody else? Do they like you, IQ? Or are they cruel like Mr. Toledano? I swallow the nerves in my stomach, taking a hesitant step back. Why are you asking me so many questions? His intense gaze softens when he loosens his grip on my arm. That's when it hits me, Alex. Panic flares in my stomach. It makes sense now why Will has paid interest in me, why he talks to me, why he's asking so many questions. The realization crushes over me in a heavy wave. He's caught me outside the gates. He saw me sneaking around after dark. And now he's asking if I have any other enemies in Ade Moss. And though I barely know him, betrayal flickers in my chest. I pull my arm from his grip and cradle it against my body. Do you think I had something to do with Alex's death? No. Will takes a step back, eyebrows knitting together. No, Alera. That's not at all. He shakes his head, his dark hair brushing against the sharp line of his jaw. You intrigue me. It's all. But how could someone like me intrigue a man from the palace? I turn away from him warily, wishing I could believe what he said. I should get going. Alera. Will calls after me. I look at him over my shoulder, his dark eyes holding me captive. Alex. How did they find him? You should already know that. I breathe. Will is here to investigate Alex's death, but he does not even know how Alex was found. My stomach churns with uneasiness. Something isn't right about Mr. Marul. He's hiding something. You're here to investigate his death, right? I wrap my arms tighter around myself. Will just stares at me, his dark eyes flickering unnaturally when the sunlight catches them. But before he can say anything in response, a cluster of giggling distracts me. I turn to look over my shoulder. A group of younger girls, all about 15 years of age, are standing around one of the posters being stapled on the wall around the village, giggling. I squint my eyes to scan what they are looking at. Prince Verlacy is getting married, Will says from behind me, reading the poster easily. I turn to look at him sideways. Prince Verlacy lives in the palace, and ever since he was born he's been betrothed to a beautiful girl from a village close to the palace. It seems as though they finally set a date. You can read that. I query. Will doesn't look at me. He's still staring at the poster distractedly. I have good eyesight, he says half-heartedly. Please excuse me. I have to go. I squint at the poster, trying to read it from where we stand. But all I see are scribbled illegible black lines. It's impossible. Will, you never answered my question. My voice dies in my throat because when I turn around, Will Marul is nowhere to be seen. 6. I'm telling you, Papa, it was humiliating. Imelda's cheeks burn red as she stands with her hands on her hips. She just outright insulted Ethi right in front of everyone. I stay silent, staring at the grainy wood holding the table together. My father's gaze burns into the side of my face as Imelda rants, but he hasn't said anything. Imelda hasn't given any of us a chance to speak. Calm down, Imelda. Papa puts a hand on her arm. You haven't given Alera a chance to tell her side of the story. Imelda rolls her eyes. That's because she's just going to play the victim like always? I look up to stare at my father. He stares at me with kind, patient eyes, a stark contrast to Imelda's fiery gaze. I should tell them about Ethi and Krista. I should tell them how Ethi restrained me and dug his fingernails into my skin. But when I open my mouth, his words echo in my mind and the words get strangled in my throat. I'll ruin you. I'll take your sister and leave you with nothing. See, Papa. Imelda shakes her head, lips pursed as she glares at me. She has nothing to say. She's not even going to apologize. She folds her arms in a huff. You know what? I wish Mother was here. She would have done something. That's enough. Papa's voice is stern and drops an octave, effectively silencing both Imelda and me as the air grows tense. Don't bring your mother into this, Imelda. I don't remember her, as she died from the flu when I was young, but both Imelda and Mother loved her dearly. Imelda collapses in the chair, wiping at her eyes. Are you even going to tell Alara off? I tried to find DTHI all afternoon, but he was nowhere to be seen. What if he doesn't want me anymore? Her vulnerability seeps through the cracks of her hard exterior. Her blue eyes glassy as her bottom lip wavers. I reach towards her to take her hand, but she snatches it away. I'm sorry, Imelda. She sniffs, wiping her sleeve across her nose. Thank you. I shake my head, my heart skipping a beat. I'm not apologizing for what I said to ETHII. I caught him sneaking around the village with my friend Crystal last night. Her eyes shoot to mine, her eyebrows knitting together. I didn't know how to tell you. Papa puts his hand over mine. Alara, that is a very serious accusation to make. I swear. Papa, it's true. I stand, still staring at Imelda. She looks frozen in time, her lips parted and eyes wide and innocent. THI said if I told anyone he'd make sure nobody would want to be my suitor. Without a word, Imelda spins on her heel and disappears out the door, slamming it behind her. My heart pounds in my chest as I take a step to follow, but Papa halts me. Let her go. Alara. He doesn't believe me. I shake my head, trying to step past him, and it's growing dark. You see yourself it is not safe to be out there alone. Papa puts a hand on my shoulder, his eyes dark as they meet mine. I will go, he says. Go to bed, Alara. Alex's Memorial Day is tomorrow. And then he disappears out the door after Imelda. I let out a shaky breath, a chill prickling up my spine as the cool air brushes past me. I blow the candlelight out and make my way into my bedroom. After changing, I clamber into my bed and run to my elbows against the windowsill, gazing into the dotted sky as questions race around my mind. Did Imelda find ETHII? Will he lie to her? As the thought crosses my mind, a flicker of movement catches my eye. I immediately straighten my back, leaning further out the window. I know who it is without having to think about it. The dark clothing, the dark hair, there is no mistaking William Marole for somebody else as he moves through the darkness with the grace of a panther. I watch closely through the safety of my bedroom window with narrowed eyes as he disappears through the gate and into the forbidden forest. My breath catches in my throat, everything inside of me screaming to follow him. But I stay where I am safe as a shudder runs down my spine and a new question arises. Will Marule is a liar. He told me he'd never been into the forest. He told me that I was mistaken. What else could he be lying about? He ventures into the forest and lies. He moves with the stealth of an animal stalking its prey. My heart picks up in my chest as I stare out at the darkness. There is something about him that sets me completely on edge. All the signs are pointing to one thing. I try to push the thought away, but I can't suppress the question. Is Will Marule Alex's killer? The entire village shows up to Alex's memorial. It is a gathering of white clothes and red-rimmed eyes aside from Will Marule. He wears dark clothing and stands at the front, his skin burning golden under the harsh gaze of the sun. With each glance I sneak at him, my heart pounds harder in my chest. What was he doing last night? What was he doing on the night Alex died? Are we remembering Alex's death in the presence of his killer? Imelda stands next to me, her eyes puff-eyed than anyone else's. But I know Alex's tragic death is not the cause. She and Papa returned not long after they left last night, and it didn't take long for the sobbing to start, echoing through the walls and rattling my chest. I didn't know where she went until I saw Krista across the clearing with a palm-sized red splotch on her cheek. I should ask Imelda about it. I should offer her support. I should be worrying about the way ETHI glares at me from the other side of the clearing and Krista stares at me with glassy eyes. But all I can think about is William Marule, the man who makes every woman in the village blush. The man who might be the very reason for this memorial. Before Will, nobody had ever entered the forbidden forest and come back alive. He could have a perfectly good reason for going into the forest, but he lied about it. What if he is the monster we are supposed to be afraid of? Thank you all for coming today. Alex's father, Mitri, takes the stand, swiping a hand across his cheek. Alex would have been so overjoyed to have heard the kind things you've all shared. Before we end this evening, I'd like to formally introduce somebody to you. The crowd murmurs as Marul stands forward, his hands linked behind his back and his shoulders straight as his eyes sweep the crowd. My stomach tightens as his eyes brush over me. I present to you Mr. William Marul, Mitri says, gazing up at Will. He's been sent from the palace to find my son's killer. The murmurs of the crowd become louder, some triumphant while others are filled with anticipation. I stay silent, standing next to Imelda whose nails dig into my wrist. Will's eyes skin over the crowd, falsely when they meet mine. My stomach twists as I avert my gaze to the ground. My mind burns with confusion. I don't know what to believe. I don't know whether or not I should tell someone what I suspect. Will Marul is secretive and suspicious, but he saved me from Ethia's wrath yesterday. Would it be right to turn him over when I have no concrete evidence that he is a murderer? Mr. Marul, Mitri steps back. If you have any words, please, right, please.
When I look back up,
Will is no longer looking at me. His gaze sweeps over the crowd, confident and sure of himself as he stands steadily in front of us. Alex sounded like an incredible man, and I'm sorry for your loss. He says, it's important that you learn from this and do not enter the Forbidden Forest. Stay behind the protective walls of your village and you'll be safe. Liar! You're lying! I swallow the words working their way up my throat. Ethi steps forward, his expression sour as he stares begrudgingly at Will. And what about Alex's killer? Will Marul doesn't falter, nor does he seem shaken by Ethi's inquisition. He simply raises his chin and flickers his gaze through the crowd, a group of girls giggling when his eyes brush across theirs. I wonder if their stomachs drops the way mine does. I wonder if he makes them as breathless as he does me. I wonder if I'm not the only one who is attracted to somebody who could be a murderer. Then he looks at mine, his dark eyes holding mine captive and make my throat tighten. Am I looking into the eyes of a killer? Why do I feel so light-headed when he looks at me? His eyes flash unnaturally the way they did by the well. Alex's death will be avenged. I can promise you that. 7. The cool fingers of the night scratch at my spine as they prepare to burn Alex. Firelight dances on the walls that protect the village as we stand at the entrance watching the men carry Alex's coffin to the clearing between the walls and the forest. They settle it down on the bed of wood and then step away, holding their breaths as Mitri lights it with a torch and then steps away. The smoke rising from the coffin creates a blurry fog over the stars. Nobody speaks a word as the air clouds around us. The glowing embers leap and twirl in the air, spitting towards the fire and creating a dull glow that wards off the darkness of unwanted visitors. Kenna sidles up beside me and slips her hand into mine. I squeeze her hand back when I notice her shaking. I didn't know Alex well, but to Kenna, he was a close family friend. One by one, people retreat back to their homes until there is only a small crowd of people still watching the coffin slowly burn into ash. I stay still, holding Kenna's hand in my own as the air flickers orange around us. It isn't fair, she breathes as the fire begins to burn out, leaving nothing but a dark pile of ashes. Alex was so kind. I'm sorry, Kenna. I rest my head on her shoulder, wishing my words could bring comfort. Death isn't known for being fair. She sighs, turning to look over her shoulder. Do you think he'll really find the killer? I follow her gaze to the well where Marul leans lazily against it as he speaks to Alex's father. My stomach tightens as I watch him. What if he is the killer? I don't know. I bite the edge of my lip. We should ask him. Hannah says as she tugs on my arm. What? I resist as she pulls me behind her. Cannot know. But she's already off, her hand unclasped from mine as she waltzes gracefully towards Marul. She moves at just the right moment because Mitri walks away from Will and back towards the burnt pile of ashes. She reaches Will, curtsying for him as his gaze shifts to her. Begrudgingly, I force myself to follow her, wavering behind her and trying to avoid Will's eyes. Mr. Marul, Kenna says, cheeks flushed. I was wondering if I could have a moment of your time. Will's eyes dart over Kenna's shoulder and look directly at me, his mouth tilting sideways as my stomach flutters. Pictures flicker in my mind of Will moving through the forbidden forest and tearing Alex's throat out. Of course, Miss Fedorov. Kenna's cheeks redden and she ducks her head to nod at me. This is my friend, Miss Feline. Will raises an eyebrow when he looks at me, grinning in a way that makes my stomach twist. It's nice to see you again, Illyra. I swallow as blood rushes to my cheeks and Kenna's curious gaze burns my skin. We wanted to ask you some questions. I clear my throat and nudge Kenna in the ribs. About Alex. Will leans against the well and reaches up to brush his hair from his eyes. I see. He was a friend of mine, Sir Kenna says. I suppose I wanted to know whether or not you know who killed him. Will doesn't say anything for a few moments as he stares at Kenna. I'm relieved to see that his stare seems to make Kenna blush too. It fills me with relief to know that no one is exempt from his charm. Perhaps I am just getting caught up in the novelty of Will. Perhaps his touch never sent tingles down my spine. Miss Fedorov, he trails off. I'm sorry, but I can't share that information with you. Did you kill Alex? I bite my tongue to keep myself from speaking. It doesn't work. Why not? I narrow my eyes, stepping closer. Will's gaze flickers to me, his eyes filled with shadows. You are here to investigate his death, right? I try to keep my voice level, but I can barely breathe as I stare at him and wait for the answer to the question I asked earlier, the question he seemed to avoid. But Will doesn't shift uncomfortably as I'd expect. He just quirks an eyebrow and shrugs. Of course I am. Why couldn't you answer me before? Why do you go outside the gates? What are you hiding? A shiver travels down my spine. Kenna, I grip her upper arm, staring at Will cautiously. We should go. Kenna nods. Thank you for your time, Mr. Marul. I am sorry if I wasted it. She lets me pull her away and back towards the village, past the glowing torches of light and into the empty marketplace. I glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see Will staring after us with dark eyes and that confident stance that seems to make everyone feel uneasy. But there is nobody standing at the well. Once again, Will Marul has vanished into thin air. How do you know him? Illyra. Kenna whispers as she pulls her arm from my grip and turns to face me. I don't. I continue forward without looking at her. He called you Illyra, she says, holding on to my upper arm to keep me from moving. And it was like he seemed to know you. Warmth rushes to my cheeks as I bite the inside of my cheek. I bumped into him yesterday. That's all. I don't know why he called me that. Kenna narrows her eyes. Why are you blushing? My cheeks burn at her words and I duck my head so my hair falls in front of my face. I'm not. I'm just. Hot Illyra the lean. She gasps, pulling my hands from my face and giggling. I knew you weren't exempt from Mr. Marul's charms. You fancy him just like the rest of us. I shake my head and wish I could melt into the ground. I don't. She hooks an arm through mine. Ooh, Illyra, she says. There's no point denying it. He is ever so dreamy. But he could be a murderer, too, and I'm somehow still very attracted to him. I'm not interested in him, I say as we turn the corner. Honestly, I don't know if I'm trying to convince her or myself. And you are in denial. She laughs. Maybe we can invite him to your birthday celebration this week. Don't be silly. I roll my eyes. I'd forgotten about my birthday celebration, but the reminder isn't a pleasant one. Our 19th birthday celebration is the day that all potential suitors will come to meet us. Most girls in the village look forward to the day, but it has always frightened me. I'm not sure I'll have anything to worry about considering I might not even have any suitors after I sabotaged me. He's from the palace, I remind her. Besides, he must be leaving soon. You're right. She giggles, nudging me, and if he was staying, I would be the one to marry him. I swallow the jealousy that works its way up my throat at her comment. I have no right to be jealous. I have no claim over Will and I shouldn't even be thinking of him that way. He'd be a murderer. But she's wrong. Anyway, even though Kenna is incredibly beautiful, if Wamaru really was going to marry somebody from Mayday Moss, it wouldn't be either of us. It'd be someone from the higher status families, someone more suited to his lavish lifestyle. Are you sure you could be Tanalda to it? I smirk and spin around to face her as we reach the front door to my family's cabin. And what about Jorge Mendoza? He's infatuated with you. He is, isn't he? She bites her lip. Her cheeks pink. I do like him very much. Elira. He's very kind. I can't help but smile. On paper, Jorge Mendoza isn't the best suitor in the village because he's of low status. But Kenna deserves someone gentle and kind and Jorge's the perfect man for that. I'll see you tomorrow, I say, squeezing her hand before turning around and slipping into the cottage. Papa sits at the dining table, brushing paint against his stones while Imelda sits at the other end fiddling with string. She looks up when I step in the room, her eyes still red but brightening when I flash her a sheepish smile. Alea, she says, pushing to her feet and smiling tensely. I'm preparing decorations for your celebration at the end of the week. We have to make a good impression on your potential suitors. That's great. I try to sound enthusiastic, but it comes out tense and forced. Imelda's smile cracks. It doesn't surprise me that she's trying to help. Whenever Imelda is upset, she hides it by burying herself in other people's business. Do you want to go over small talk with me? I'd rather stare at a wall for 3 hours. Another time, I ask. Alex's memorial has made me quite tired. Papa looks up and puts a hand over Imelda's to keep her from saying anything. Get some sleep, Elira, he says gently. Your sister and I will prepare for your celebration. Don't you worry, sweetheart. Thank you. Papa. I move over to him and kiss on his cheek before going to my bedroom and get prepared for bed. I rest against the windowsill like I did the night before, scanning the gate and waiting for any movement. But the only thing that changes is the drizzle that begins to leak from the sky and patters against the roof of the cottage. I shudder, wrapping my arms around myself to generate warmth. What I'm doing isn't right. I shouldn't care about Wilmarul. I shouldn't be excited to see him. I shouldn't be hoping he'll appear in the entrance. But I can't drag myself away. But Wilmarul doesn't come through the gate. I fall asleep with the small candlelight flickering against the wall as I wait for somebody who never comes. And what about Alec Wayers? I wrinkle my nose and lean against the wall, pausing to stare shoot Imelda look of distaste. Do we have to do this now? Your celebration is tomorrow. Alea, Imelda snaps. She twists her lips in thought as she looks at the list of names in her hands. We must absolutely do this now. Now answer me. I finish filling one bucket with water and move over to fill the next one after placing the full one at Imelda's feet. From the moment I woke up, Imelda has pestered me about the details of my celebration. She's already asked what kind of decorations I would like and what refreshments would make me happiest. Now she's moved on to the invite list. Then no to Mr. Wayers. I say. I don't want ETHI's best friend telling everyone not to go near me. I pretend not to notice when she flinches at the mention of ETHII. You said no to everyone. Alea. She sighs and folds her arms across her chest. At this rate, you won't have any potential suitors because you've declined them all. Water splashes from the last bucket as I drop it to the ground and lift myself to sit on the edge of the well. I gather the bottom of my dress to keep it from dragging on the ground. I'm only turning 19. Imelda, I sigh, squinting my eyes from the harsh glare of the sun. You know how it goes in A-Day, Moss, Imelda warns, putting her hands on her hips. If you don't marry in your 19th year of life, then you're going to be suitor, less for life. I raise my eyebrows. You only met your suitor when you were 20. She throws her hands in the air. Exactly. And look where that got me, completely and utterly alone. She collapses against the wall and buries her head in her hands. Guilt clutches at my throat, but before I can say anything, she looks up, her eyes brightening. And that's it, I'm inviting everyone. I jump down from the well. Imelda. Yes, Alera. I am inviting the entire village. Whether they come or not is their decision. She nods confidently, her eyes warning me not to disagree. Come on. We need to take the water we filled up to the Golden Cavern. Old Man Joe needs them before night. Don't you mean the water I filled up? I say, picking up one of the buckets. Filled with water. It's a struggle to even lift it off the ground. Imelda picks up the other bucket and waves my complaints away with her hand as she wanders away from me. I'll do it next time. I roll my eyes and follow her, trying my hardest not to stumble over my dress as my arms ache from the weight of the bucket. The Golden Cavern isn't far, but I'm almost tempted to give up halfway there. Instead of collecting stones, Joe offered Imelda and me a job of helping him prepare the Golden Cavern for a special party he's hosting tonight. When we reach the Golden Cavern, Imelda turns to me pink-cheeked, almost dropping the bucket to the ground as she pats down her hair. Alera, does my hair look all right? I forgot to brush it this morning. As usual, Imelda's hair is neat and pristine. I look over her shoulder with furrowed brows, expecting to see ETHI inside the Golden Cavern. But it is not ETHI who is standing at the counter talking with Old Man Joe. It's Fumarul. My stomach clenches with nerves. Suddenly, I'd rather be anywhere but helping Imelda carry the buckets in. You look fine, I murmur, trying to think of any way to get away before he sees me. I could just leave Imelda to carry both of the buckets on her own, or I could just dump them and then leave. I need to leave. I can't continue staring in the face of a potential murderer and live with the fact that I am still attracted to him. My favorite, the lean girls. Joe calls out, trapping me from escape. My stomach drops as Will's gaze flickers to us. Imelda straightens her posture and spins around with a smile plastered on her face. We are the lean girls. Joe, exactly why you're my favorite. Joe winks with a chuckle. I stand slightly behind Imelda and keep my eyes on Joe to avoid Will, even as I feel his eyes burn into the side of my face with the heat of fire. My heart skips a beat. Are we even safe around this man? What is he capable of? Good, you've got the water, Joe says. Bring it to the bar. Will you? And then come and help me hang some of the decorations. Of course. Imelda bustles towards the counter, nearly stumbling over the table led on her way. I follow her, my steps more hesitant, as I place the bucket down on the opposite side that Will stands. Mr. Marul. Imelda curtsies, her cheeks pink as she fixes her hair. Miss the lean. He nods at her and leans against the bar, eyes flickering to me. The two of you are here to help decorate. Yes, sir. Imelda smiles brightly. His gaze is focused on my sister, so I stare at him from behind Imelda. He wears a white shirt that hugs his chest and black trousers. I dig my nails into my skin, hating the way my stomach flips at the way a lazy smile spreads across his face when Joe mutters something under his breath that I don't hear. Will's eyes dart to me over Imelda's shoulder, catching me staring at him. I swallow the lump in my throat and avert my gaze to the ground. Perhaps I could stay to help, he says, still staring at me. My stomach drops. Imelda giggles. Why, Mr. Marul? That would lovely, don't you have a killer to find? I cut her off and force myself to look at him. He tilts his head to the side slightly and raises a brow. Imelda nudges me. Alea. She hisses. Nobody is going to die if I take a small break. Will says slowly. His voice sends shudders down my spine. How can he still make me so flustered? How can he still make me feel like a small child with a giddy crush even though I know what he might have done to Alex? I bite my lip and try to read something from his eyes, but my attempts are futile. His eyes could be screaming murder and I'd be too distracted by the way they shimmer to even notice. Perhaps not, I say coldly, but someone is already dead. And you, Mr. Marul, are here to find his killer. Not to help decorate, but to find a killer. That is what you're here for, right? Alia. Imelda is completely horrified. But Will doesn't seem offended by my outburst. He doesn't even seem bothered by it, and that just adds to the mystery that clouds around him. If I had spoken that way to anyone higher in status than me and A.D. Moss, I would have been punished. But Will simply stares at me with dark eyes full of secrets. I turn around and walk towards the door. I can't stay here any longer. Not while Will stands there spinning lies and making my head spin. Alea. My name flows from his mouth and sounds like the kind of melody that makes your insides hum and tingle. Why does the sound of my name from his lips make me want to melt into a pool of butterflies? I turn to look at him over my shoulder as I hover in the entrance to the golden cavern. His smile has fallen away, his posture more rigid as his mouth hangs open like he wants to say something. I swallow the butterflies in my stomach. It's Miss Feline. I don't smile, offering him one last stare before spinning around and fleeing from the golden cavern. I try not to think about the fact that I'm leaving Imelda alone with the man every woman in the village, including myself, swoons over. The only difference between those women and me is that I potentially know something about Marul that could make him very dangerous to us all. But horrifilously, he still makes my stomach flip. Not only does it make me foolish, but it makes me afraid, hate. The golden cavern is alight with fire lighting the torches on the walls, and the music resonates through the entrance and into the marketplace. I stand in the entrance, watching the people gathered inside as they dance and laugh with one another. A shiver runs down my spine as I remember the last time there was a party at the Golden Cavern. It was the night before Will Marul made himself known in A.D. Moss. It was the night Alex was killed. I search through the crowds of people in the Golden Cavern. Krista stands against the bar and stares into space wistfully. She's all alone, ostracized by the village because of her involvement with ETHII. It seems unfair that while this hasn't dented ETHII's reputation, nobody wants to associate with Krista. They'll whisper in the shadows. They'll call her ruined goods. My stomach twists with guilt. Even though she hurt my sister and did this to herself, she was my friend and her life is now over. I know what it's like to be the outsider. Somebody appears beside me, so close their arm brushes against mine. I turn to look at them, a chill running down my spine as I crane my neck to meet his gaze. If he were to do anything, everybody would see. He can't hurt me. Not now. What do you want? I ask, clenching my fists so he can't see the way they shake. I Toledano doesn't move. He stays beside me with his arm brushing against mine. He doesn't look at me, talk to me, or even acknowledge that I'm there. But when I take a step to the side so that we're no longer touching, he grips my upper arm to hold me in place. ETHII. My voice shakes. Please let go of me. I'm not doing anything wrong. Hilera, he says. His fingernails dig painfully into my skin. I simply want to talk to you. Can we walk? Alarm flares in my veins. No, I try to pull my arm away, but he won't release me. I don't want to walk with you. ETHII. Please let me go. His fingernails dig in deeper. Fine. We can talk here, in front of all these people. I swallow. I don't want to talk to you at all. ETHII. You don't have much of a choice. Alea. ETHI hisses, spinning me around to face him. He steps closer so that I'm trapped against the doorframe. What do you want from me? You've ruined my life. He leans closer, his breath hot against my face. Do you realize that? I wince and turn my face away. Why don't you marry Krista instead? You think I care about that? He scoffs. Once Mr. Marul returns to the palace and he tells people about me, there is no chance I will ever get to sell my garments there. I should have known he didn't care about Imelda. All he cares about is his stupid garments collection. I gulp. And you're going to ruin mine. You're going to make nobody want me. I already know that. My celebration is tomorrow, and you're going to make sure nobody turns up. His face stretches into a grin, but it is anything but friendly. Your celebration will commence as usual. Illyra. A chill runs down my spine. But don't underestimate me, I have a few tricks up my sleeve. Alarms go off in my head. What are you talking about? Where were you the night Alex died? Illyra. He tilts his head sideways, eyes drilling into me. I try not to flinch. I was in the Golden Cavern. You can ask anyone. They saw me. He quirks an eyebrow. Alex didn't die while you were in the Golden Cavern. Illyra. That's when he was found. Mr. Marul said he was killed several hours before that. I've been asking around, and you were nowhere to be seen. My heart drops into my stomach. What are you saying? Ethi. Shrugs and steps back. I'm just saying, this wouldn't be the first time you've been the murderer. And though he isn't holding me anymore, I can't move, paralyzed by his words as my blood runs cold. What are you talking about? Ethi. The music from the Golden Cavern is drowned out by the screaming in my mind. I'm not a murderer. Ethi reaches forward to pull my sleeve up, revealing the ugly, rippled skin on my arm. You may not be old enough to remember how you got these scars, Illyra, but I am, he says. And when I bring you forward as the murderer of Alex, I don't think it'll be any trouble for people to believe me since I've seen you kill before. Fear crawls up my spine as I flinch backwards. I was born with these scars. I rip my arm from him and pull my sleeve down. I don't know what you're talking about. You will, Illyra. He smiles. Just you wait. I choke on my own words as he starts to walk away, my fingers quivering by my side. Ethi thinks I killed Alex. He's going to tell people I killed Alex. You think I killed him? I call out with a strangled voice. You think I killed Alex? No, I don't think you did. Ethi looks back at me over his shoulder, his eyes cold and calculating. He tells me honestly, and then he grins. But who will everybody believe? Me or you? And then he walks away into the Golden Cavern. I can't breathe. Fear pumps the blood from my veins to my heart. If Ethi accused me of murder, it would be his word against mine. Compared to him, my word means nothing. The once tempting music makes my head pound and the laughter wafting towards me seems mocking as it rebounds off the wall of my head. My muscles feel weak as I stumble backwards, my chest rapidly rising and falling as I dash through the marketplace and try to get home as fast as I can. I've seen you kill before. I need to find my father before I choke on my own breath. I need to ask him about my arm. I need to know the truth. Am I a murderer? Was Ethi telling the truth? The breath is completely knocked out of me when I run face first into a solid barricade as I stumble around the corner. We crash against one another and I tumble to the ground, fluttering on top of them as they roll us over, so I land on top of their chest instead of the ground. When I open my eyes, my heart drops into my stomach. This night could not get any worse. Will stares up at me, his dark eyes reflecting the moon that shines above him. My body is pressed against his and his hands are rested on mine to keep me steady. The position we are in is entirely inappropriate, but I can't bring myself to move. Fancy seeing you here. Will's teasing voice breaks me from my trance. I immediately clamber off of him and crawl backwards along the ground, pushing to my feet as Will does the same, brushing his pants with the back of his hands. He has a smudge of dirt across his cheek. I blink at him, my heart picking up in my chest as I stumble backwards. Once again, I run into Marul in the dark shadows of the night when there is nobody around. Elira. His playful smile drops and he steps forward. What's wrong? Where were you running to? I stumble backwards and bite the inside of my cheek. Stay away from me, Mr. Marul. I'm not afraid of him, even though I wish I was. But something deep inside of me knows he is dangerous. And after my encounter with Ethii, I am in no state to converse with a killer. He furrows his brows. Elira. He takes another step forward but pauses when I take one back and wrap my arms around myself. I'm not going to hurt you. I swallow when my back presses against the wall of the cabin behind me. There is nowhere for me to run. I'm frozen against this wall and Marul stands across from me with his dark eyes and charming smile. I should be afraid of him killing me, but instead, I am afraid of the way my heart beats when he says my name. I shake my head. Leave me alone, please. I'm breathless from my talk with Ethii and from my fall. But when I breathe in, the cold air stabs the back of my throat like little daggers. I won't tell anyone. I swear. I'll keep my mouth shut if you just leave me alone. Will doesn't listen. He only steps closer. Not when you're in this state. He scans me with his eyes. Tell me what happened. What's wrong? I stare at him evenly. I hold my breath to keep myself from speaking. Everything inside of me wants to tell him what Ethii said. But I can't trust him. I can't trust myself around him. If Will really is Alex's killer, he will be more than happy to take Etii's side and frame me for his death. Elira. Will narrows his eyes at the way I'm pressed against the wall. Are you afraid of me? I can barely speak because I can barely breathe. I should be afraid of him. I should be trying to stay away from him. But I'm not. Did you kill him? Did you kill Alex? His eyebrows furrow as he takes a step back. I watch him as he shakes his head, blowing out a breath of air and reaching around to rub the back of his neck. You think I killed Alex? I bite my lip. I don't know. He stares at me, his dark eyes swimming with secrets. And then he reaches a hand towards me. Will you let me show you something? Elira. I look at his hand stretched out towards me and wonder how it would feel to take it. To feel his bare skin brush mine. I shake my head to clear it. Answer my question. I say, my voice wavering. I didn't kill Alex. He keeps his hand stretched out. Are you afraid of me?
Elira.
Are you afraid that I'll hurt you? It takes everything in me not to dart my gaze to the ground from the intensity of his stare. Why do I believe him? Why do I trust him so much when he hasn't given me a reason to? Why do I believe him when I know he's lied to me? I feel like I should be. I murmur. He steps forward. But you're not. I shake my head. No, I swallow. Should I be? I would never hurt you, he says, stretching his hand out again. Let me show you something. I stare blankly at his hand and try to convince myself not to take it. I need to get home. I need to ask my father about my arm. I need to figure out what to do about Ethii. But when Marul stands in front of me and promises to whisk me away and share his secrets, I cannot refuse. I don't take his hand, afraid of what I might feel if I do. Instead, I take a breath of air and step towards him. Okay? He smiles, dropping his hand when he realizes I'm not going to take it and looks towards the gate. Come on. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe.